think this is what episode is this now? 14. I think 13 was the last one.
We're getting there. Look at that. They're stacking up one by one.
That is, that is crazy. That like they've been doing this over 3 months. That's flown by.
It's also mad how much better my nose looks. Like I know I was a bit self-conscious about it last week because I had a cold. And now this week, look, the swelling's gone down and I can actually kind of like look at myself and appreciate my aesthetic. Whereas last week I was really, really self-conscious about it. I don't know if anyone could tell watching the episode, but I definitely was. So I'm gonna stop being a narcissistic motherfucker. And yeah, well, we're back anyways.
Instagram Moddy is back for the time being. And also you haven't had like much time to, I know that you always go back into training straight after a fight anyway. You haven't had much time to chill out and let the physique decline much, because like we said before hitting record, you're straight back into a wrestling tournament. Like,
yeah, I'm going to Helsinki to Finland. So I leave there next Friday. I'll go with the team. It'll be a day before weigh-in, which is good. And they also allow in Finland. This is only in Finland though. They allow a 2 kilogram weight allowance. So I'm technically supposed to be competing in the 97 kilogram division. However, we're allowed to be 99 kgs. So there's a 2 kilogram weight allowance. So I'm guessing on the day the guys are going to be pretty massive. But I think I'll be within that range anyways. I'll be about 99 kg anyways. So I'll be within the range needed to go and do the job. So yeah, no, like it's exciting. I know it's going to be tough because I've never done a wrestling tournament before. So to choose quite a tough tournament for my first one, you could say is a bit outlandish, but at the same time, this is where you need to test your skill set, and I feel it's the best place to go and do that, and work on the other areas of my game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Before I follow up, because I'll obviously keep all of that in the episode. So, Gladiator Diaries episode 14. And as we spoke about before recording, again, a little bit similar to last week, there's nothing like crazy urgent for us to get stuck into, but I did want to talk about this wrestling tournament with you. You said then about how you're expecting the guys to come in heavy because of that weight like buffer that they give you.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a fight where you felt like you're undersized? Because obviously you went up to light heavy, so you might not be the biggest light heavyweight in the division. I mean, some of the guys in light heavyweight are massive, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think that plays into your skill. But have you ever been in a fight where you thought this guy's just so big?
I don't know. I mean, Hamlet, you could say, was pretty big. Jimmy Crute was a pretty big fella. I mean, Khalil Roundtree obviously was freaking like a tank. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we all look pretty similar. Like if you look at the physiques, if you look at the slightly more ripped guys, they're usually around the same size. Like me and Petrino, we looked fairly similar the day before, and I think even on the day, people were saying how quite thick he looked on in the cage. But I mean, it's exactly the same size as me. I didn't feel like there's any strength discrepancies or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could say maybe when I started, but even when I started, I wasn't undersized. It was mad because when I had my first fight at light heavyweight, actually in a kickboxing fight, I looked drawn out for the weigh-ins. Like it took a lot for me to actually make the weight. I was severely drawn out. Like I was cutting a lot of water for that first one. The strength and conditioning that I did after my first initial knee injury, with my dad sort of packed on a bit of the size and everything, and then that's just continued to get better and better as time has gone on. So I mean, look, I look at guys even like Sadulayev, and you know, some of these like really top level like wrestlers. They're like quite thick, you know, and they're at 97 kgs. I'm not like, it's mad because you got like the fighters build, wrestlers build. You got like you know, like a sprinters build. You got all these different types of different sizes out there. But yeah, I'd say I'm fairly average for a light heavyweight in terms of size.
Yeah, I just remember I suppose that part of this episode originally was I wanted to talk to you a lot about the Cage Warriors title and what winning that title meant the first time around, because originally this weekend there was supposed to be a light heavyweight title fight in Cage Warriors, and the fight isn't happening anymore, so we should probably wait and talk about it at a later date because that felt like the right time to do it. But that's a good time to talk about it as well, because I just remember, I believe the first time that I properly interviewed you was after you beat Michailidis in the UFC. And what the reason I remember that, I was thinking about this the other day, is because one of the things I asked you was about how at that fight, and I think I don't think it was Hamlet. I believe it was the guy after Hamlet, the title defense, where you won both of them with elbows, where the guy came in for a takedown and couldn't get you down, and then you just raining down those elbows from like the side.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you about it and being like, has anyone ever won back-to-back fights like that by being dangerous when the guy's trying to take you down? And so it came to mind because I thought, whilst you might not have felt undersized, it was like, though maybe it's more than that, but I remember those 3 fights in a row, Hamlet, Nasiglia, and Michailidis, were like, they were all going for those same like kind of takedowns and that same kind of game plan, which, you know, worked in your favor because those elbows and the takedown defense kept you in those fights. And then I remember the Hamlet one was crazy.
Yeah. Shall I tell you what's mad? That Michailidis, for that fight, technically, me and Michailidis were, because Michailidis essentially went up a weight class because he used to fight at middleweight, and then because he took a short notice scrap at at light heavyweight, he should have been undersized. But in reality, I think we actually stepped into the cage about the same size, because I weighed in. Obviously, I woke up the morning without a water cut. Yeah. So let me just reiterate that. Without a water cut, I woke up at 93 kilo. So that's like a middleweight size. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For my UFC debut. So me and Michailidis actually would have been like very similar in terms of our size, but I would have been more, favorable to middleweight than I would have been a light heavyweight. It was absolutely mad to think that I was actually that small. Do you know what I mean? Like, even look at the video, like I look like a bit like a kid almost in that first fight. So it's crazy to see the development of my body over the years, actually. And I think it's been done in like quite quick succession, like over the course of the years. You know what I mean? But all credit goes to my dad and his strength and conditioning. He's been putting me through my paces, doing stuff that I don't think any other people would do. But then I think that's why I don't have any issues strength-wise with guys. Yeah, I've been taken down, but that's more due to technique and my lack of discipline on certain areas. To like I was explaining before, I should have stuffed the head instead of getting a whizzer and stuff like this. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah. It's just mad, like I say, that I woke up on weight, no water cut for that first fight, and that's a light heavyweight. You can imagine how big the other geezers would have been. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think Jimmy Crute said that he walked in at like about 100 kilo on the day, and even Tyson Pedro said he cut from 100 kilo or something like that. I don't even know, but I mean, there's some pretty big numbers, mate.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Because I still feel like people are still kind of figuring out in MMA what the kind of optimal weight cut is, right? Because it's happened more in recent years, I think, than any other time in MMA, where you get people fighting closer to their natural weight than ever before. Like I was going to say the early days of the UFC, but the early days was like whatever weight, it was like just close enough, and they were like, "That's fine, that's fine."
Weight, yeah,
yeah, and then it kind of went to those drastic cuts where people were fighting like 2 weight classes below probably what they should have been at, which obviously it was a different time, so you could have IVs and stuff like that, and it was a bit easier to do. And then now I feel like it's starting to get more to like a science of like, well, what weight can you, obviously they do like the DEXA scans and stuff where it's like, well, you can compete at this weight and still be healthy. Any lower and you're really like sacrificing it. But it's interesting that you didn't kind of need to be part of that curve. You were just like, well, I'm too big for middleweight, I'll go up to light heavy and fight there instead. Like, what was the, I think we touched on this when Paulie was on, but the decision to move up to light heavyweight, what was like the final straw where you were like, I'm gonna go up a weight class now?
I mean, the fact that my first fight back from, again, my first sort of major knee injury, I literally struggled to make light heavyweight. So if that's already an indication as to, like I need to move up a weight class, I think that would have been it. That would have been it. I just filled. It seemed like I just filled out. Do you know what I mean? I started lifting heavy weights. I wasn't so scrawny. I started filling out, and I just became a bigger person in general. So and it just seemed like the almost like the natural thing to do. And even for me, like to cut like, from 93, 94 kilos in water to get down to middleweight. I mean, it's just, I understand people got to go through some tough things, but that's like an Alex Pereira weight cut. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the type of weight cut I would have to go through. And look, everyone who's at that point is always moving up. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you just feel your body. Like I say, you just feel your body. What type of environment you're setting, like what type of weights that you're doing. I got on the creatine and stuff like this, and just things. Just I think it meshed and happened very naturally, very well for me. And I think now I'm definitely more of a light heavyweight, because now I can cut down my weight to about, off of body fat, just like maybe like 213. So I've already gained a bit of muscle, maybe to where before I would cut down like off of body weight and I would get down to 205 anyways. So I think I've mastered the fine science, and I still feel strong. I never get weaker towards a weight cut. So yeah, man, it's definitely a learning curve. But I think as the years go on with the experience, you sort of figure out where you're more fine-tuned for.
Do you find it weird going back and watching older fights? Because I had never, I think, because of watching your fights, and it's like every few months, it's like, okay, we're back in there, and so you sometimes forget like how much time has passed between each fight. So it's only, I think, since we've been doing this podcast and looking back at like older fights and stuff like that of yours, where like I noticed it as well, where I'm like watching your Cage Warriors fights and being like, I don't remember ever looking at you in a Cage Warriors cage and being like, this guy looks really young. But now I do it and I'm like, you look so different. Like
it's the beard,
like you've said. I think it must be that. It must be that,
mate. I had a baby face. I had a it's mad to think that you think of like a kid. You'd think like 18 years old, a guy that hasn't really put on much size and he hasn't really been to the gym much. And it's mad because I've been training for so many years at that point, and still like my light heavyweight title fight at 25 years old, I looked freaking like a baby. Like I didn't even look like a man. It's mad because exactly. Like now you look at me, you think like bloody hell. And like I think most of that credit goes to, like I say, the facial hair. I think, and maybe the lack of hair on top of my head as well. Well, it doesn't look like I have a lack of hair, but definitely the hairline's receding and the bald patches are coming through. So that's definitely a sign of age. But yeah, just maturity in my body and my muscles, and being. I think before I used to blow up a lot in between fights. Like now, I kind of stay a little bit more closer to my weight, anyways. Which was, I think that's another reason why I want to keep training is because I want to make sure I stay the same sort of. I want to be that same human and not veer too far off of it. Even though it is very hard, to stay towards the leaner side because you sometimes you don't want to neglect these cakes and sweets and chocolates. But I do think. Increased discipline in that area is definitely it's definitely more fulfilling, and I definitely need to exercise it a little bit more. I must say, like I think I do get away with, being able to kind of eat eat a little bit of what I like, and still make the weight class.
Yeah. Well, I'm holding out hope that I'm gonna have a similar trajectory, because I get looked at so many times as if like I've just discovered MMA. I'm like I am 25 and I've been covering the sport for quite a while at this point, so I feel it. So hopefully, like I said, similar trtrajectory, and then we'll be out of the weeds within a few
That's
years.
it. You'll be banging out the gym every day. You'll be banging on the creatine. And next thing you know, all of your posts aren't going to be MMA reporting related. They're all just going to be topless selfies of you just flexing in the mirror, which is, I guess you're just taking a page out of my book, So
Maybe
if you need any
maybe
tips, mate, let me know.
I think I'll leave it to you, mate. You smash out the park. I suppose we should get back to talking about this wrestling tournament, right? Because immediately it was on the list of things to do when you came out of that last fight. So, in general, how are you feeling for it? Because you said that it's a tough one, but also, with how committed you were after that fight to being like, this is what I want to do, this is what I need to do to get better. It's like you might as well jump in at the deep end, because sooner rather than later, I imagine
Yeah,
it was the overall goal.
100%. Like the rule set, uh, the rule set in terms of like the parterre, the 3 minutes, the 30-second rests. I think there's two rounds of 3 minutes, and it's very intense. Like I say, it'll be an experience. I want to get in on these guys. Do you know what I mean? These guys have probably been wrestling most of their lives, and I just want to put myself out there. Test myself, put myself out on like a competitive environment, and I think it'll be very good for me. And like I say, like I want taste and more of a taste of victory. Obviously I've had the taste of defeat from the MMA, and I want to go in there and I want to really push myself. I really want to ignite my competitive fire even more so. And I think if you're doing it across all other areas, it can only be good for you. And it'll make me more confident in my skill sets, anyways, such as my wrestling. And using that in the MMA field, and just like energy consumption, just being better at my energy usage into a fight, becoming more efficient. And the way you do that is by doing a wrestling tournament where the guy's going to be going, hell for leather for 3 minutes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to push myself, to test myself. I'm looking to go and get a gold medal at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? I'm not out here to lose. Although I've never done this before. You only learn one way, and that's by just going out there and getting thrust into the intense world of wrestling.
Is it something that that you enjoy doing, like wrestling specifically, or like have
Yeah.
you had to learn to, like, what was it like when you first started doing it? Because everyone who talks about wrestling always talks about, as it is the grueling sport of the core sports of MMA. It is the one that is the most grinding and tough on the body.
I do enjoy it, but yes, that's probably the hardest part of it. It's like you enjoy it until you get tired.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like you realize that your energy stores get taken up very quickly. Like you want to be able to like recuperate or recharge, and you find that it's very difficult because you're constantly grinding on the body, and it's just having the different levels of the energy systems. Like you have to train so many different factors, and to be able to pick someone up and lift them, and like have someone constantly dragging on your head, like these are all very tiring things that like really like I say, it really forces you underwater, and you have to learn to swim and not sink. I do love it. I do love wrestling. I think I am quite technical in the wrestling aspect. A lot of people may, think, oh, well, he's never used it. But like I said, I'm hoping this will be the first step to showing people that I can wrestle, And yeah, like I go to competitions, like I say, with every single, with all my thought process going that I need to win, I don't go into competitions looking to get second or third place. I'm looking there to win, I understand that it's going to be difficult, but that's where I thrive. I think a lot more under pressure in an environment where I've never been before. Apparently, this is the hardest tournament of the year. So, in terms of the calendar that my wrestling team uses, so what a better place to debut, you know? And also, it will show me, you know, areas where I need to possibly develop. So I'm looking forward to it. What can I say?
Yeah. Have you mentioned then about kind of performing best when you do feel that pressure and stuff? Have you ever gone into a fight where you haven't really had that, and you've just kind of it hasn't hit you for whatever reason, like those nerves and stuff?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever not had nerves. You know, I think every fighter, it's just your fight or flight. You know, at the end of the day, this guy's going to try and land punches on you. There's fights which I believe are probably, you know, in your head you think that are going to be easier than others. There's fights which you think are going to be harder in your head, and then they actually end up easier than what you thought. So I would say the one fight where I wasn't quite so nervous was the Christian Lapsley fight in Sweden. Um, you know, it was a late notice replacement. And usually people with late notice replacements are like very like kind of like I don't know about this one, but you know, I just knew in that one I kind of felt and already knew looking at tape that my skill sets would be better. And I came out there a little bit less nervous than my other fights, but that was very early in my career, anyways. You know, if anything, against Tyson Pedro, I felt the most calm, which is weird. You know, considering that, you know, my second stint in the UFC against such a highly ranked opponent in his home country, you'd think, what the hell was going on over here? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you'd think that would bring a bit of shell shock, a bit of like stage fright or nerves or whatever. But yeah, that was actually the calmest that I think I've been. So, yeah, it's been a roller coaster of different emotions from fight to fight, from different challenge to challenge.
Yeah, I suppose on the flip side of that, is there a fight where that's been even more like you said, like thriving under the pressure and stuff? But has there ever been one where you felt like your back was against the wall more than any other?
Yeah, the Khalil fight for sure. Mentally had a lot of things like kind of playing on my head going into the Jimmy Crute fight. Maybe that had an effect, maybe not. I don't know. But that fight was obviously very important. It was you know, like such a highly ranked opponent. It was a big opportunity, but at the same time, it was like you're talk about being thrown in the deep end. That's one way to do it, you know. But definitely the Khalil fight, I feel like my back was against the wall in that one, and going in there with a pretty serious knee injury as well. I had a lot going on in my head in that fight, but you know, I did my best to weather the storm until obviously that kick came into play. So, but it was the one where I didn't fire on all cylinders quickly enough. I kind of was just always playing catch up, and then that eventually led to my downfall.
Mm. I think that'll pretty much do it for the wrestling tournament. I guess we'll speak about it next week
Yeah,
before
when
you
I
go
come
out
back,
as
yeah.
well. Oh wait, when are you going? Did you say
Actually, yeah. We'll talk right the day before I go out there.
cool. So we'll do like a little like last minute kind of preview of how you're feeling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then look forward to hearing about it all on the episode after that.
Yeah.
The only other thing I want to talk about in this episode, which is maybe not like directly relevant to you, but I thought maybe you might have some insight on because of some of the people that you train with and stuff, is the Bellator PFL deal, which obviously you train with guys that are in both promotions that are now in the same promotion together.
Yeah.
How has it been, kind of, because it's been a really uncertain time for a lot of those guys. Like I saw you posted the other day of training with Linton Vassell, who is in one of the most difficult places because he's the number one contender for the heavyweight title.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, Bellator's being sold. So you suddenly, like, obviously he was meant to fight for the title and then the fight fell off. So it's like, I
Yeah.
imagine it's been a confusing time for some of those guys.
I think they're still going to keep separate entities.
Yeah.
But they're just going to run them under the same roof. you see, there's a lot of mergers going on. You got mergers with even talent companies. You got PFL merging with Clan Wars. Like, there's a lot of craziness going on, you know, and I just believe that, you know, in the future they are going to make them properly, but it's essentially it's going to be a lot of champion versus champion type deals and stuff like this going on. I think they're going to keep the two separate entities as they are, just like I say, under the same banner or under the same ownership. I don't really hear too much because they don't even know what the hell's going on. But it makes it very exciting for certain fights to come about, because look, the Ryan Bader fight, I'm 100% sure is going to be the next fight for Linton, sometime in the near future, when they give him the call. And you know, it brings on other exciting fights like the Francis Ngannou fight, the fight that everyone wants. You know what I mean, at heavyweight. So there's now opportunities for those things to come to fruition. You know, so it just gives more opportunities for those fighters. There's more. Yeah, that's exactly the word. It's just more opportunities. They're able to fight more fighters. Probably contract negotiations will be slightly different. But I'm the thing I'm still not really understanding. And again, I'm pretty sure this will be laid out, you know, in the future, is how are they going to run a tournament format, PFL style? Are they just going to do it with the Bellator fighters? Are they going to do a normal do you know what I mean? But I think it would make sense if PFL was buying Bellator, that they would have to keep the tournament format. But then it means that there's going to have to be a bigger tournament, because if you look at PFL, really haven't got like a massive roster of fighters. Do you know what I mean? It's Bellator that has the main, in terms of the numbers of the main roster of fighters. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we talked about it the other week as well. I mean, you know, we really don't know. Like, one person buying another, it's mad, because when UFC bought Strikeforce, and all the Strikeforce fighters went to the UFC, when they bought WEC, and then, you know, then all the fighters got merged in there, and then they started fighting each other there. So how is it going to play out when, like I say, the format of the actual promotion is not like a standard, you know, oh yeah, we just sign contracts for a fight and we go, when it's done in a tournament type deal, and it's like they have a regular season as well. Like, would they have to have more regular season fights? Because that's the way I see that it would have to play out. But yeah, I mean, they're obviously they're doing a cool thing over there. They're doing their thing. But it's mad, because, like, you know, looking at it from the outside, you got, you know, Simeon and Luke, guys that I've trained with, both of them. They were essentially fighting in different promotions. Now there's a potential that with that merger happening, what's going to happen? Are they going to end up being contracted to fight against one another? And like, and again, you have it in other gyms where guys are fighting in those two different promotions in the same weight class. Are they going to have to fight each other? How's that all going to work? I don't know. It makes no sense. And I'm pretty sure those things will all get explained in the near future. I think it's a bit mad for the fighters as well, because, you know, like I say, but then again, maybe they know something I don't. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm just sitting here chatting and, like, you know, I have no idea, but they know exactly what's going on. Do you know what I mean? I don't have any inside scoop or anything like that. But it's just, I feel good for them, because it means that they will get more opportunities. Fair play to them. And, you know, it just means that more fighters are able to fight on a bigger stage. And, you know, there'll be a clear number two in the fight game in terms of a business, you know, because we all know who the clear number one is, which is the UFC. So it will just provide that clear, we know who is 100%, you know. And of course they're going to say things are, they want to compete, you know, in terms of rivaling the competition there and stuff like this. But look, at the end of the day, UFC is the UFC, you know. I mean, with contender series and stuff like this, there's probably going to be more fighters coming into the roster, and adding new fresh breed of talent and stuff like this. They're both it's mad because they're both completely different ecosystems. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you can't even really compare the two. They're just two completely different sides. But yeah, exciting to see what they are going to do with the promotions.
Yeah, super. I hadn't even considered the fact that you'll have teammates that wouldn't have even thought about the idea of having to fight each other. But obviously, with the PFL, if they end up being in a tournament like the PFL Europe tournament or something like that, you don't get to pick your opponents. So there's a possibility of things like that happening. The way that I believe they said it will happen is that they're going to talk to every Bellator fighter and let them kind of say their preference of whether they want to go into the season format for next year or this Bellator like separate thing that they're doing, which is 8 events a year with 2 title fights on each card. So hopefully, like we said with Linton Purcell specifically, his title fight should be first because he was the number 1 contender, and they should rebook that fight for one of those Bellator kind of PFL but Bellator events instead of the season format. And I think they are, they're going to keep those separate. The problem is, like you said, is the Bellator roster, they've signed everyone on it, which is 210 fighters. So if you have 100 fighters that all want to go into the regular season, I don't know how that works because you can't, like, the season format already forces you to fight once every 2 months. I don't know how you add more fights into that, right? Like,
Yeah,
it'd be
well,
interesting to see.
The league format would mean that they would have to probably allocate a certain, like, in all fairness, like UFC has almost every weekend filled with fights. If anyone's going to watch a fight show, it's going to be the UFC. So what that means is that they're just going to have to put on more shows. So that's really what it's going to have to come down to. What venues can they get? Do you know what I mean? Because all the big venues are going to be taken by the UFC for most of the weekends. So how are they going to, But again, I leave that to them. That's their business that they will obviously sort out, and they'll figure out. But yeah, this I think it's definitely exciting and weird.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we just don't know. We're kind of just sitting here like throwing our hands about, like, what's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? It's just like kind of throw a load of stuff in a hat, like shake it all about, close your eyes, and throw it out and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? We're at the stage where everything's being juggled all together, and then soon we're going to find out, what's actually going to come out of the hat, on the other side. The main thing is that it will just give more fighters opportunities, and more fights to be made, more excitement for the people fighting those two promotions. So, like I say, I definitely applaud what they're doing, and fair play to them. We'll see how it all plays out. Like I say, I'm obviously very happy with the way the UFC are doing things. And of course, I want to get to the top of the UFC rankings. That's my goal. But I do hope that they figure things out, and have something special for the fans and for the fighters.
Yeah, obviously, I've been taking everything in that I possibly can in terms of information about this, just in covering it. And even then, I've got a bunch, like you said, interest. Like, it's interesting, exciting, and a little bit confusing, which kind of adds to the excitement for me because I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, you add
A lot
what
of
happens.
question marks.
What happens if
yeah.
like for example, all the Bellator light heavyweights at the top of the division, they all say, I want to be a part of the PFL tournament because I reckon I can win it. And then you've got guys like Simeon, who, of course, is going to be fighting in the PFL Europe finals. Does he get to go into the PFL regular season as well? Like, it just, there's so many questions, but I'm excited to, as much as I love with the UFC, right? The reason it's the leader, you know what you get every time. You get the best fighting the best. You get quality cards week in, week out. thing that excites me with the PFL thing is I don't know. It could turn out to be a total mess, but I'm so excited to watch it all unfold. And like you said, some great opportunities for the fighters as well. The final thing I wanted to touch on before we end this episode, because you mentioned it then about how, obviously your aspiration is to break the top 15 rankings in the light heavyweight division and work your way up the UFC. Those stats that I saw that you posted, I'd seen them earlier in the day, and I was going to mention it anyway. But the stats of how many fighters are actually in every weight class, I was shocked to see that the light heavyweight division, I think, is the least amount of fighters in any weight class in the UFC. Which is crazy, but I imagine also gives you some sense of gratitude that, like, it's a little bit of a reminder of, like, there aren't many people that make it to this level. I think it was 34 light heavyweights currently signed to the UFC. Like,
Yeah,
that is really not a lot when you consider how many light heavyweights are out there in the world.
yeah. I mean, it's absolutely mad. When I actually saw that figure, I'm like, is that accurate? Like, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, especially when you look at the lightweights, they're like in the 70s. Do you know what I mean? So, I think obviously every year with the contender series and stuff like this, they're going to be looking to fill out those numbers 100%. As much as guys are getting cut, the guys are being guys are being thrown into the mix. So it's constantly keeping it's making it more competitive. At the end of the day, this is the top of the top, so they're making it as competitive as can be. It's just when I saw that number, like I said, I was really just grateful. The fact that I've got an opportunity to be a part of, but not only do I just want to be a part, I do still to this day believe that I can become the champion. I do believe I will become the champion. It's only a matter of time. You know what I mean? Everyone says it, but you look at the division and although there's some very good fights, I do believe I can beat every single one of them. And I think you've got to have that mentality if you're going out here and thrown into the lion's den. The only thing about this game is a game eventually you get caught with one punch, it could be lights out, especially at that weight class. So, it's definitely cool. It's definitely cool, and it's almost inspiring that the route to the top as well. It's like it can happen very quickly. You just got to rack up those wins. You know what I mean? Just got to rack up the wins against any form of competition. Get out there, make a name for yourself, and you can get to the top. And like I say, the guys at the top of the division, although they're like the Jamal Hills and the Alex Pereiras, although they're very skillful, very tough, powerful punchers, they're all beatable. Like I say, there's definitely more being thrown up in the air in terms of lightweights and featherweights in the lower weight classes, where there's just more guys. That's all it is. I guess we are the unique, the special breed almost. You know what I mean? Us and the heavyweights. I think the heavyweights have got 35. So I mean, it's to find guys of our size and stature and to compete at that level is there's a very small number. So. It just makes you feel good, makes you feel special, but at the same time, it makes you feel like everything's up for grabs. So it's going to make everyone compete, more violently, and it's going to make the competition a hell of a lot tougher. But then that's where you separate the weak from the strong, and just got to go and make a name for yourself. And this is what I'll be planning to do for next year.
Absolutely. I think that's the perfect way to finish that episode, man. So all the best for wrestling training and the build up to this week.
My man,
and,
yeah, I'm definitely. I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to it. Not only is it a long trip into Holborn from freaking the outskirts of, bloody where I live, in Zone 7 on the trains, and I have to go all the way into Central London and then go and wrestle around with some of the toughest motherfuckers out here in terms of wrestling in the country. And it's like an hour of just brutal. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the cardio is definitely going to be tested today, but I'm looking forward to it.
Exciting stuff, man. I'll catch you next week. As always,
You're the man, and we're definitely gonna have some different topics as well that I'm thinking to throw in there. So I'll throw some ideas about with you, and then trust me, we're gonna have some good chats, me and you. It's gonna be a good time.
Sounds good.
My
Sounds
man.
good. All right. I look forward to it.
Nice one,
See you later,
brother.
man.
Take care. See you soon, my man.